Treasurer Joe Hockey, welcome to the program. Can we start on the budget? You said this morning if the Senate chooses to block savings initiatives, then we'll need to look at other savings initiatives that may not require legislation. What are you talking about there?
Well, let me start by saying, David, that we have laid down the very best plans to repair the budget. Now, if the Labor Party has an alternative, they should offer that up because 12 months ago they recognised that the budget needs to be fixed. And that's why they had a number of initiatives in last year's budget. We want the Labor Party to not only support our budget, we want them to support their budget from a year ago. And so far they're opposing just everything. So if the Labor Party with 25 senators opposes absolutely everything and deals itself out of discussions on the budget, and the Greens with 10 senators oppose absolutely everything and deal themselves out of being involved in policy making, then we've got to look at alternatives, which includes the independents and PUP representatives, and we've got to try and work through the challenges we have.
OK, but if they all oppose the key measures, which they're saying they will, what do you do? What non-legislative measures can you take?
Well, for example, the most significant individual item in the budget as a savings measure is a reduction in foreign aid. Now, that does not require legislation, specific legislation. We just have to reduce the expenditure there as part of our budget savings. We are absolutely determined to repair the budget because, David, if we don't, then the pain for the Australian people further down the track will be much greater. And you repair the roof of the house while the sun is still shining. That's what we are endeavouring to do so that we can create more jobs and a better and more prosperous environment into the future. But frankly, we are not going to be deterred.
If you follow that logic about where you can then reduce spending, can I ask you directly, will you make deeper cuts then to the public service?
Well, you can go through individual items, but I'm not going to do that because as it stands, a lot of our initiatives still need to be legislated and they take place over time, David.
I mean, is this the sort of thing? Is this the sort of thing you're threatening? Is this the sort of thing you're threatening? Reduced spending on areas like public service, like what you give the states for health and education, disability services?
Well, there's a range of things you can undertake. I mean, it is a very large budget. But what I am saying to our political opponents and saying to people who might sit in the middle in the Senate, there is no easy solution here. If you disagree with us, and you're perfectly entitled to do so, then you need to provide alternative savings to make up the shortfall in the budget, because we are absolutely determined, and it is the common interest to fix the budget, and that's certainly our core election commitment, to fix the budget, and we're not going to be deterred from getting on with that job.
OK, I just want to be clear on what you are threatening here. If the Parliament, if the Senate doesn't back what you've put on the table, then spending areas, including health, education, disability, public service, could be in your sights. Well,
David, there aren't any choices. There aren't any choices. We've laid down a plan, an economic action strategy that delivers long-term sustainable government budgets, whether they be Labor or Liberal. We've delivered a plan. Now, if our political opponents choose to undermine that plan, then we have to make alternative decisions. Now, we can only lay down plans that we believe are credible and are likely also to pass through the Parliament. I mean, for example, how extraordinary it is that the Greens are opposing an increase in fuel excise. I mean, that is one of the most bizarre decisions I've seen from any political party, and the Greens have really led the field, and they're just saying no to everything. So they're becoming absolutely irrelevant. Even with 10 senators, the Greens have made themselves totally irrelevant, and they seem to be completely contradicting their own policy principles. Now, I know the Labor Party often contradicts its own principles, but the Greens are a surprise to me. Well, it was unexpected. So that means that if we don't get the revenue in that position, and we are still going to spend the money on roads, and we are still going to spend the money on infrastructure, We need to find the money from other areas, and we'll certainly be looking at that if our fuel excise measures fails to pass.
Well, you did see a change of heart last night from the Palmer United Party on the financial advice changes. It was only last week, I think, that he said you could stick these changes up your... well, he said you could stick them. Are you encouraged that he's had an about-face on this, Joe Hockey?
Well, it's not just Clive Palmer. I mean, obviously, it's been a very fruitful negotiation with Mr Palmer and with the senators from Palmer United. But don't forget, Bill Shorten said before the budget there was no way he was going to support a deficit levy, and then after the budget he said he would, and he did. So, frankly...
Positions change.
Yeah, they do change, and what we've got to do is, look, David, I've been around, I fear I've been around nearly 2 decades in this place. I've seen lots of confected crises about budgets. There is no crisis with this budget. It is a simple fact that we are working carefully and methodically in putting in place measures that are going to fix the budget and strengthen the economy, and we're doing that, and it'll take time, and we're patient, but the only way to do it is to have proper engagement, and I would urge everyone involved to come to the table. We're prepared to discuss these things, but the automatic response of Labor and the Greens at the moment is to say no. Well, then they leave us with few alternatives.
I want to ask you about these financial advice changes. Your mother-in-law was one of those who lost money thanks to dodgy advice at the Commonwealth Bank. The government is now going to allow financial advisors to once again receive bonuses for directing clients to bank products. Now, is that really in the best interests of consumers?
Well, it's a lot more than that, David. And as the Murray inquiry in its first report released yesterday identified, it is not necessarily the case that more regulation, more red tape and more forms deliver better outcomes for consumers. So we have responded to the unholy mess that Bill Shorten introduced just over 1.5 years ago in relation to the future of financial advice. What we've focused on is having better regulation that comes at a lower cost to consumers rather than having more regulation that fails to do the job.
Sure, now, but it is going to mean that advisors can get special bonuses for directing clients to bank products. Now, it may not be called a commission, but is there really any difference between a bonus and a commission in that situation?
Well, the bottom line is that the great fear, and I've been involved with this for a very long time, and it started as a failure to disclose commissions that were received from financial product advisors to financial advisors when they steered a consumer into a product. Now, we obviously require commissions and various other payments to be properly disclosed to the client. And what we're looking for is a regime that delivers transparency and accountability. Now, Labor tried that. They introduced 16 amendments, David, to their own bills in the Parliament to try and do it. And Bill Shorten had 5 different explanatory memorandums to his own bill, which is unprecedented. That's how much of an unholy mess it was.
I don't know if consumers care about that, though. They care about getting good advice.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think what was interesting is came out of the Murray, the first interim report of the Murray Financial Systems Inquiry yesterday, was how do we deliver better, more understandable advice to consumers? That's the issue. Now, in the case of the Commonwealth Bank, there was outright unlawful activity. It was unlawful under laws. Now, no amount of law is going to stop people committing crimes. You can use law as but do things like bonuses encourage financial planners and advisors to push the boundaries more? Well, but bonuses are, well, geez, David, I mean, I don't know how you're remunerated at Sky, but I assume the bonuses are part of the equation, as they would be in a number of businesses. So if you perform well, you get paid bonuses.
Well,
there's nothing
they're
wrong
not
with
for
it.
the record, but no, there's nothing wrong with the bonus.
Well, they should, David. They should.
No,
they should. You do a fabulous job, David.
But it is in this area. Okay, it is in this area that concern has been raised about financial advice being linked to the commissions or bonuses, that advisors can receive.
Well, I don't have any particular issue with people being properly remunerated for the job they do, as long as it is transparent. And the issue is there an obligation to act in the best interests of the customer? Now, we are satisfied that that remains the case, and it is the case, and it should be the case. A financial advisor should be putting the interests of the customer first, and if they are receiving any payment at all from a financial product provider, that should be disclosed to the customer.
Treasurer Joe Hockey, thanks so much for your time.
Any time for you, David, and I'll get on to Sky about making sure you get a bonus.